Harold and I ran a 12-hour race one time, and it was a 24-hour race, but we jumped in at the 12-hour mark, and there were guys that had started the 24-mile race. It was a 1-mile loop, and they were drinking a beer every loop.
Oh, God.
And they were trying to see how far they get.
Damn.
This dude was on, like, mile 30 or something. I mean, they had a whiteboard. There's like 3 guys passed out in chairs, you know, when we jumped in at 12. It was pretty funny.
That is funny. That's fueling.
That's the fueling strategy for the old school ultra guys, you know.
Just dive right in there. All right, yeah, I'll cheers to that.
Cheers, dude.
Beer laps.
This is Couch to 50K. How to finish your first ultra marathon.
Let's talk about fueling. I will not be drinking beer during my first ultra marathon. Potentially at the finish line almost immediately. I am excited to talk about fueling. It's something that, of course, I've done in training and racing and other things, but also never taken very seriously because most of the things that I've done have not been quite this long, right? So typically, regardless of what I'm doing, I'm going to get through it with probably nothing if I wanted to. Anyway, let's dive into it. I'd love to hear kind of the specific things that you like to put in your body while you're training and racing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, there's a lot in fueling. I think the place that I'll come at it from, and I think we'll agree on this, is like this is not necessarily how you would fuel like your elite runner athlete that's looking to like break the tape at like the fastest end. You know, they're probably going to be on a more like less whole foods and more of a like, supplement in like specific running fuel type kind of stuff.
Well, before you go too far, there is a thing that I've noticed in the past, at least for me, and this is running specific, because running's hard, right? And I've had problems eating solid foods during a run, like flat out, right? Like it's just hard on the gut. My body hasn't ever been trained to that. So especially with running, I would always stick to gels and straight water. Even like a Gatorade was too much for me, like mid-race run, race.
I think that there is probably some science to that in the fact that when you're being highly active and all of the blood is in your extremities and your limbs, it's not in your stomach, you're not able to digest food. From what I understand, that's kind of like the basics of it. In ultra running, you're gonna slow down a little bit, so that's kind of where the solid foods start to come in. You do have some time where you're not like at your maximum output. If you're able to run an ultra like you would run a 5K where you're like at that high end, then you're an elite athlete and you're probably gonna follow a plan that involves drinking your calories through liquid based, sugars and taking in gels and stuff like that. And there is a place for that for sure in our nutrition plan as well. But I think there's also a way to, to use like whole foods and not get, the problem is if you're not working out, if you're not running at that level and you're just ingesting the gels and like the maltodextrin and all that kind of stuff, but you're not at that output level, they're going to sit in your gut and you're not going to digest them properly. And it's like, they call it gut rot, and you just, it's like diarrhea and like, it's not, So if we want to get to personal levels, I will ease into like a long effort with like fruit in the morning. I eat like pouches. I do like fruit pouches like you'd give your kids, and maybe some like a nut, like trail mix or like a Kind bar, or like, at that point early in the race, you can still kind of digest food. You shouldn't be running too hard at that point, so you can take on some whole foods at that time. Like I'm a big fan of figs and dates and like fruit and nuts and granola and all that kind of stuff early in the race.
Okay.
And then as the race will progress, I will kind of move in the middle more into like the liquid based calories. Tailwind that we have here at the store is a good one. I've used a variety over the years. I mean, like I used to use hammer stuff. I find that like, especially like during the heat, a lot of times like you start in the morning and it's cool, and then you get into like your middle of the day kind of run and it's hot out. Liquid calories are like, that's when they go down easy. That's kind of when those have always worked for me. And then, after it's a weird thing, right? Because there's like in a very long race, there's a place where you get to where I would call it like having an iron gut, where it's just like you are so hungry and you're burning so many calories that you can just like eat a cheeseburger. Right. And then it's like you're going. But or you could be in the opposite place too, where you can't even it's so hard to like, I've gone so far on just drinking Coca-Cola because that's all I could take at the time. Like my stomach was so upset and like my mouth hurt from eating and all I could do was drink Coke. And, I kept going. But I've also been in a position where, I've been able to eat whatever you put in front of me just and going. Obviously, I feel like that's a better place to be in. In a really long race. But I don't know. I kind of started to ramble there. It's hard because, for a 50K and for a 3-day race, like fueling is a totally different thing.
Sure. Yeah. And I remember watching the live stream, and it was one of the aid stations towards the end, I want to say. And they were known for like the ribs, like they were making ribs.
Right.
And like, these guys are eating ribs right now. Like, I hope they're going to stay there for 3 hours or something, which of course nobody is. People are flying through there, grabbing a rib and just taking off down the trail.
You've burnt so many calories by day 3 that you can't, the hunger is just beyond. You know what I mean? You couldn't eat enough to do it. Now it is interesting because you can't digest food that fast, as fast as your eyes are like, I want that. So, this is pretty applicable to across the distance. Don't finish it. Don't finish the thing, right? So
no full burgers.
Yeah, like if they hand you a thing, it's like, oh, it's a bean roll up. Like take a bite of it. When you're at the aid station at Holcomb Valley and it's like there's a watermelon that's cut up in front of you, take a piece and eat it, and like don't go for like piece 5 and 6 and set, because you are going to be, kind of ravenous at times, and you're not doing any benefit to yourself. You can only work with so many calories, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you're really only trying to take in what you need to burn to keep going. Right. Or to function at a high level, not just to survive, but like you wouldn't want to eat 4 pieces of watermelon because your body really only needs the one at that moment. You need another hour to go by before you're having something else substantial. So that is really interesting. I do think I would like to apply it to the 50K distance in particular, whether that's the 31 typical, or maybe you're doing 50 miles. I think it's considerably longer, but it's not similar. 3 days, right? So let's. I love the simplicity of kind of beginning, middle, and end. And I picture myself getting really hungry at hour 5, 6. Right. Hopefully, I'm not out there too much past 7 or 8. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We're
gonna get you in under 7.
All right, that's kind of the goal I've been having in my mind, actually, is like 7 hours is a good little benchmark there to see what happens.
Well, but there's a lot of room to not eat when you're going for 7 hours. I will put it that way.
Yeah.
You don't need to fuel for day 2. Right. So, allow yourself to be hungry at the end.
Sure.
But don't bonk. Right. You don't want to run out of calories, but you also don't need to, like, you're gonna get to eat dinner. Right. So, you want to be light. You want to be light, and you want to be quick, and you want to be processing. You want to be, digesting the food that you put in. You don't want to be heavy out there.
Right.
That's like you get out there and you eat too much, and it's the middle of the day, and you're climbing up a hill, and it's hot, and it's like, oh, bro, talk about slowing down.
Yeah.
Like, you slow down when you eat too much, and when you get too warm. Like, those two things will kill you in a race.
Yep.
So, I would start with some whole foods in the morning. Water, wouldn't eat for the first hour. Right? Let's say you're going to be out there for 7 hours. Don't eat. Maybe sip water for the first hour. On the hour, and then in practice this in training, but come up with just a schedule that you like to do the fueling things that you need to do, which could be like drink water, take in calories, take electrolytes, maybe drink calories, like kind of split them up into like, okay, at hour 1, I'm going to take electrolytes and I'm going to drink some water, right? Because you can only drink so much water too. So you regulate this stuff. And then it's like, okay, on the 15-minute, I'm going to eat food and I'm going to drink some water behind it. And then on the 45, I'm just going to drink water. And then on the, hour, I'm going to drink electrolytes. And you find a pattern that you can work with that allows you to, like, not have to think about, did I eat too much? Did I, just kind of plan it out and make it simple so you're not guessing what you're doing during that time. I think that would be a way to structure it. Start with some whole foods, like, and by whole foods, fruit smashed up in a pouch. That's what I like to do at the start. Maybe like a beef jerky, like a little piece of beef jerky or a beef stick, or like a piece of cheese or something. Probably not something most people would carry in their pack, but like a Baby Bell cheese and the wax, just the whole foods I feel like are a good base for the day. And then I would move into liquid calories in the middle of the day. And when you get to an aid station, take a bite of whatever looks good. That's how I like to do it. Because like some kind of reward system for what it's like, oh man, those look good at this time. That's probably your body telling you need what's in that thing. Like, you're pretty smart if you stop thinking. Your body's like,
we're in survival
potato
mode,
chips,
right? Yeah,
it's like, oh, I need salt, chips. I'm gonna, but don't,
eat the bowl.
Right.
Nice.
Just have some discipline. Do that. Pick at the aid station of what looks good. And then I think at the end of the day, if you're, in the middle, you're doing liquid calories and you're picking what looks good at the aid station. At the end of the day is like your gels and your, it's like your cheater things. It's like, I don't want to eat, but I don't want to bonk.
Right.
I can squeeze 100 calories into my mouth right now and just, and not think about it.
Yep.
That's when I go to that. And then in that end too is also when you go to like the liquid gold, which is the Coca-Cola or the ginger ale.
Yep.
You put it off until the end when you need it. But like that like Coca-Cola calories work great when you're dying.
Sure.
Like sugar and caffeine and the bubbles help your stomach. But I always try to like wait. Like, you start drinking Coke at the first aid station, you're hooked. You're
drinking it all day.
Yeah.
And then you have no teeth. No, that you did bring up something interesting a minute ago that I've been thinking about. I've typically really only run with water and then liquid calories in general, like gels and such, right?
Yep.
I've struggled, you know, and this is more triathlon based. Coming off the bike, I've already been exercising for a long time, and the stomach doesn't really want anything, right? Yeah. So I'm like, what's the simplest thing I can do? I can suck down a gel and I can drink some water, right? But I also recognize that might not be enough to do this whole thing, right? And so and this is a training thing, of course, to experiment with, but I would like to see what liquid nutrition, hydration thing can work. And not saying that would be the only fueling, tool that I would use, but like something like a Tailwind mix in a bottle or in the gel, in the flask, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why it's so popular.
Right.
And why I'll go back to like the hammer thing. They've been around for a long time, right? They were, big in the triathlon world.
Right.
It's easier to digest the liquids. And if you can handle it, I mean, this is like the whole high carb movement right now. You know, we went through like the keto movement.
Yep.
I feel like that, is much more suited to like long distance and ultra stuff than the high carb. Like the high carb movement seems to be more on the shorter end. And then there's like some people that are so fast
it's speed, right?
that they can implement it into like the 100-mile game and stuff. But for most people, like taking in that many carbs for the amount of time that you're going to be out there is like, bro, where are you even getting all that food?
Right.
You know, it's like, it's a lot, and that's just eating constantly. And if you're not like running so fast. So anyway, the liquids are easier to digest, and they're going to be an easier way for you to get calories into your body, especially when it's hot out. I mean, that's kind of the main, but it is interesting, dude. There's a place in there, and I don't know where it falls, but there's like a place for the recovery style of liquid fueling, like the higher protein stuff. And I feel like when you're out there and you're eating fruit, and then you're eating taking in a Tailwind, and it's like kind of sweet, and you're might have watermelon, and then you have a gel, and it's like you have this like higher like acidic like base. There is something settling to drinking like a protein shake, or like even eating like a piece of bacon, or like a cheese quesadilla. Yeah. You'll find this stuff at like aid stations, and it's like, well, that's weird. That's like opposite, that's not, but there's like a balance in your stomach that you have to find. And it's like, to get to that place where you can take in anything when you're hungry, you have to be at that balance. You can't be like too far on the, like, if you're just taking in gels, I get to where I can, like, my stomach's like, it's weird, but yeah, like those Atkins drinks, or like Boost or whatever. Oh yeah. It's like, that is like the neutralizer against whatever the thing that is making you have like heartburn and stuff from all the sweet stuff. Yeah. Because there's a lot of, like, you'll go to a lot of aid stations and ultras, and it's like Sour Patch Kids, and like, it's like, it's all like sugar. It's like, because immediate I eat some sugar and I got some energy. But then your stomach's like, bro, Yeah, I'm sure it's like a pH balance thing happening in your gut, right? And I think, go back to what you said earlier, you also know that in your logical brain, even if it's subconscious, like, ooh, that sugary stuff doesn't look good right now, even though I love Mike and Ike's. Right now I need a potato chip to, get the salt balance back in check. And that, that's an interesting thing we haven't quite talked about yet. Obviously we need salt, electrolytes, to keep absorbing even just the water. Right. So all of these things important. I do think it's all just very personal.
right? In terms of the things you like and the things you don't. There's certain things we know the body needs.
Yeah.
And we've covered that at this point, I think. And so, I think it's about finding what works for you.
Yeah. The salt part is very, it's, I don't know if it's like contentious. I think some people are like, you don't take salt tablets, you know. I've heard that, like, you shouldn't take salt tablets when you're running.
Well, let me ask you this question on the salt note. I've heard this theory floated before, that if I'm sweating and I'm seeing salt, then I have too much salt. That's my body's way of getting rid of it. You know, your gut instinct might be gut instinct. Sorry for the pun, but you know that, oh, look at all this salt that I'm losing. Right. I need to eat more salt. Right. I've seen that in the extreme for myself, and I don't really know where the balance of that is exactly. Like, because the Ironman that I did, I pre-packed my bottles on my bike with whatever it was, you know, like a Gatorade powder mix thing. It wasn't Gatorade, but something, and it didn't mix, right? And I went off and waited for an hour, and I did my long swim, and I came back, and it was just a chunk of salt in the bottom of this thing, and I was racing, right? I was dying. I just sucked it down, went to my head, and the rest of my day was fucked, quite honestly. But I sweated out. Like 15 minutes later, my whole body was covered in salt, right? Because my body's like, I gotta get rid of this. Yeah, it's way too much. Yeah, I probably didn't need anything. You know, all I had done was and swimming's hard, but you know, I was trained for
like a half hour swim. How much do you need to replenish after?
Didn't need that much, right? So that's interesting to me. You know, I think we know we need salt, right? And it's typically in the mixes. It's in the drinks. If it's called electrolyte something, it's got salt of some kind in it, right? And you're getting that. So yeah, there's an interesting thing there of keeping that balanced, I think. And I like I said, I don't have a prescription for myself that I use really in training or anything yet, but it's something that I'm ready to focus on. So
you definitely want to practice with it, right? Like everything else that we've talked about. So I would recommend, like at this point in your training, to just pick a salt supplement. That you can use in the race. Yep. Salt Stick is one of them. And they used Carbo Pro was a brand that used to be around. They used to make a product called Metasalt, and I used that a bunch. That was a good one. They had it had ginger and turmeric in it, so it had like some like anti-nausea, anti-inflammation property too. And you know, like I would take 2 of those every hour for 80 hours.
Damn. Yeah.
Right. Just, and maybe like in the middle of the night, I would forget some hours. But when it was hot out, maybe I would take 4 of them. Yeah. You know, because it just constantly trying to make sure that I'm staying balanced. And it's like, it's one of those things like in training, you don't put your body into the same position that you do when you're in deep into a long race. Right. And so like, do you need to take in that much salt when you're going for a 4-hour training run? Like probably not. You're probably going to be fine at the end of 4 hours, but in terms of like getting all the way through something really long. So just apply that to like your situation. Like, okay, if you're gonna need to take in salt for 7 hours, like start practicing with it now. Make sure it doesn't bother you on a 1-hour run. Right. But I've personally found that I do better when I'm regular with salt supplements throughout a run. Okay. It's an important part of what I use. I think it helps. Like I've noticed it like in terms of being able to stomach the calories and stuff, you know, it seems like it helps a lot in that way. Cramping and et cetera is probably like the second, thing that it helps. I can tell like when I'm low on it, like that mental thing. Like I'll get to the aid station, I'll look at like a jar of pickles, not like I'm gonna drink that whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I probably need some salt. You know,
Right.
Chug it. That's a good one though. Like when you roll to an aid station, have some pickles, dude. Like throw a pickle in your mouth. That's a great great one. Take a shot of pickle juice if they have it available. Usually at an aid station, you're gonna find like a bowl of salt, like a potato. Dip the potato in the salt. You get people will. I don't know. I think Nicodemus was talking about this. He came to Kodiak and he did like a presentation on Carbo Pro before the race one time, and he was talking about it. And I've heard other people do it. And basically, like the salt capsules, like if you're really hurting, like open it up and dump it under your tongue. Yeah, I guess that's supposed to like get it into your bloodstream faster. I don't know if that.
It's got to be faster, right? Straight delivery. That sounds awful.
They make suppositories. I'm not
Do
sure.
they really?
I don't know. I said, do they?
You can use it as one.
I don't know how into it people are. You know?
Yeah, it's all over the place. Salt. Yeah. Nice. Well, so we've talked about a lot of the things that we need just to keep performing and to go harder. I do want to talk about like a rescue fuel. You mentioned briefly, like ginger and Coke and things like that. So it's very, very common to have issues while you're out there putting in a hard effort, especially over a long period of time, right? Maybe you just feel like you can't have anything at all. Like in that instance, like what do you go to? Like what are the things? And is this something you carry with you because it might happen in between aid stations and it's so brutal you just want to, you know what I mean? Like
I think level one is ginger.
Level
level one's ginger. They make ginger candy, like individually wrapped ginger chews. Those are great. You can go to like a grocery and buy bulk like sugared candied ginger, which is another good one. But ginger is really good for nausea. So the first thing is just suck on a piece of ginger. And be surprised how much your mood and motivation is tied to your stomach.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? It's like it's not fun to feel sick, to feel nauseous. So it's like you can be out there and it can be hard, but still enjoyable.
Sure.
But when you're nauseous, it's not enjoyable. Like it's not even fun.
Yep.
It's like you want to curl up on the couch, right? It's just like that feeling of like wanting it to be over.
Yep.
Ginger does a lot for that, and that would then extend to ginger ale. That's an easy ask at the aid station. You run in, and so you can carry ginger. You can carry a couple of ginger chews. One step further, you can carry some Tums, where it's like, maybe you need like that. The ginger helps like the flavor, but like Tums can help, with your gut, like in terms of
like the actual indigestion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then like at an aid station, ginger ale is it's got like the combination of the bubbles and the ginger. It's very soothing on the stomach. And then like the next level, and you could probably find this at like a well-run 50K, probably later in the day, is going to be like chicken noodle soup or like bone broth.
Yeah.
Super salty. It's like the thing you got when you were sick when you were a kid.
Yeah, I was about to say all this stuff is just what we do when we're sick.
Yeah,
right?
and there's also the brat diet, right? Bananas, rice, apples, and what is the other one?
I have no idea.
I never heard the brat diet.
I haven't heard of the brat diet.
The brat diet, like when your kid is being a brat and they don't feel good, these are the things that they will eat. And it's like bananas, rice, applesauce, and I forget what the tea is, but
we'll have to look that up.
Have to look that up.
Stick it in the show notes.
But those are those are things that are easy to eat, easy to digest. You're probably going to find them at the aid station, like a rice ball or something. People make those. But yeah, so those would be the first things. I've gotten to the point in Coke is probably like it's not as soothing as ginger ale, but it's got more sugar and more caffeine. And then the bubbles as well. The carbonation really helps. I've gotten to the point in long races where I've only been able to take on soup before and Coke. Those are two things that I've finished long races on. Like at Tour de Jean, I could only drink Coke at the end, and it was like my tongue was like raw from the carbonation of this. Like it it, and probably just dehydration because I couldn't even drink water, and so I just had like 2 soft flasks full of Coke, leave every aid station, and would just be sipping on it. And it got to like my mouth hurt so bad, but the only thing I could do was drink Coke, dude.
Yeah. Man. Okay. Yeah. That feels good. I feel like we got a nice little overview of fueling here.
Totally.
Name of the game, practice, try it out in training.
Yeah.
Like there's ways to, I think we talked about it outside of the podcast, but like if you want to do some testing, maybe you skip breakfast, go out on the run and try to eat, for sure. So you're mimicking at least more of the end of the race than, because if you're just having a normal day and you go out there for your hour run, nothing's going to be hard. Right. So like, how do we make that training run harder so that we can test those things?
And I'll say 2 things. One of them is this is why there's a hike. This is not the only reason, but part of why there's a hike in the plan now is because that is going to hopefully force you or encourage you to be out there for longer. And so you can practice with some of these things, while you're out there for longer. And the second thing was be open to completely abandon your fueling strategy during the race and do what's working.
Right.
Because, like we were talking about your body knowing and like, if you're having to force it, it's probably, it might not be what you need. And even if that's what you practiced with, if you get out there and it's like, oh, all I can eat is bean roll-ups. And that's what they have. Never,
for
some reason that bean roll-up looks great. I'm going to eat it, and I'm going to go, eat another bean roll-up. Like just, do what works in the race. Cause I think it's a very, very difficult thing to nail and know. I've packed so many drop bags with all my nutrition for the race and then not touch one of them. And I know from being a race director and taking drop bags away from the race, like I would have a garage full of dude, this one guy, it was like, open up a drop bag and it's like a pound of gummy bears. It's like a pound. Like, dude.
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, a full pound? Like,
that's funny.
Come on, dude.
Oh, man. That's great. Well, before we wrap, I want you to retell me the story you told me before we started recording about sodium bicarbonate. Such a hot topic right now. It's really interesting. I saw a post the other day about it was at the Olympics, at the past Olympics, and it said like 85% of the sprinters out there were, on some sort of Martin bicarb plan to perform at the highest level. Of course, we've already talked about how we're not trying to perform at that level and probably don't need these types of things to complete our first one. Right. But I am interested to hear that personal story again.
I did. This is my doping story. I had a friend who introduced me to a boxing coach up here in Big Bear, boxing, like MMA training and boxing, and it's all really big. It's been like what people came up here to train for. And Ted, he invited me to a grappling class, and then he broke my rib. But that's another story. He's like twice my size.
He's a big dude.
So we were talking to the coach afterwards. I was training for an Ironman, and he just like took it upon himself to send me this like supplement routine that he suggests that he would give to all his boxers and his MMA guys. And I couldn't understand it was all like chemicals, like I don't know any of the words,
Right.
It was just like things that I had no idea where I would get them or what they were or anything. It was like this full prescription. But there was one thing on there that said sodium bicarbonate. And I was like, oh, like baking soda? And I was like, I could take that, So, leading up to Ironman, I think it was 2011 maybe, or 2012, I drank like a liter of water every day with like a tablespoon of baking soda in it or something like that. I don't remember. It was something like that. Maybe more. Maybe it was like 2 liters or something. And on race day, my stomach was just a knot. It was a full knot. Like it was the tightest cramped stomach that I've ever felt. I couldn't release it. Like it was just like there was I couldn't drink water. I could not do I couldn't ingest any type of food or fuel or anything. And well, I forced myself to because it was Ironman. So I swam, I got on the bike, and I was using Hammer Nutrition at the time. It was called Perpetuum. It was like a orange flavor Perpetuum. And I just forced myself to drink it for like the first hour, and then I just was throwing up on the bike, and I couldn't eat a banana, I couldn't drink water, and yeah, it was my slowest Ironman that I finished. I walked.
Nice.
I got off the bike and I walked, and I don't remember my time, but it was very, very slow. So that's probably, I don't know, close to 15 years ago. And so then like I recently too started seeing like all this stuff about sodium bicarbonate, like bicarb being the thing. And so I started looking into it, and it seems like there's a company out there that has figured out a way to get around the indigestion and the nausea that drinking baking soda causes.
Yeah.
And I think there was the big takeaway that I took from it was, the whole point of taking baking soda is to buffer lactic acid.
Okay.
It's like, so for like an MMA guy who's going to go out there and go at 100% for 12 minutes, it's like, yeah, lactic acid is a thing, but like for a mid-pack, Ironman dude who's like in an endurance state for 12 hours, like lactic acid buildup is not the thing that I needed to be fighting,
Right.
So it was, I had no, I did no research into it. I wasn't taking any other supplements that would, there was no reason why I should have drank baking soda. Like it was like, oh, maybe this will make me fast. You know? And,
well, this does lead me in an interesting place. I mean, obviously that's an extreme example. Mistakes were made. Right.
My mom still talks shit to me about it.
I believe it. Your mom's a fireball. That doesn't fall short for me.
Yeah.
But there's a mimicking of that tightness feeling in the gut that can come with nerves as well. Noticed this on race mornings before.
Yeah.
I've practiced all the things. I got the whole plan, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like freaking out because I got a big goal, or my new girlfriend's there, or whatever it was, right? Or my family's coming out to watch, right? So just stress and anxiety, I think, can also have a huge impact on your gut.
Absolutely.
I've felt that many, many times. We talked about our sort of rescue fuels in there that can help things like that. But those are things that, at least for me, once you get started, dissipate. Right.
I do something very specific to avoid that feeling, and I don't eat dinner the night before a race.
Oh, okay.
And then I don't have to take shit in the morning.
Yeah, solves that porta potty problem.
Yeah, and it's just like in general, the mental of getting out the poop and the whole thing, and I feel like I'm there's there's a hunger, and I mean that in like the mental sense from being hungry, you know? And it's like once you start running and stuff, you're not hungry in the same way that like you want breakfast anymore because your body's active and you're it's like I feel like you get quicker into the mode of burning the calories the way you want to be burning them.
Yeah.
If you're already in that state leading up to the race, you know? And so that that's something that like I slowly kind of like fell into from and it was like came out of the like preload carb dinner.
Yes.
Which was like the exact opposite.
Yep.
But then it's like at some point I was like, maybe I'll just eat the salad tonight, you know, because I don't want to have to stand in the line at the porta potty. And it's like a mental thing to not have to think about, like, am I going to have to take a dump on the trail if I can't go in the porta? You know, there's just the whole process. And if you don't eat dinner the night before, you don't really have to take a dump.
No, that's a great point because I sort of kind of figured that out by default, like just sort of on my own. The carb loading big dinner the night before was a huge thing, especially when we were younger. Totally. I don't know if it's still a big thing out there with the races.
Spaghetti factory, you know? Like as a high school kid before whatever.
Absolutely. We
like
used
the
to
whole
do that.
team was
we go to like
the
all you can eat whatever, and it's just pasta and bread and just anything and everything. I remember eating so much, like, oh, this is make me faster,
right?
You know, and then I wake up and I'm like, I don't need to eat anything at all. And in reality, I probably ate enough calories that I didn't need to eat for the whole freaking race,
right?
You know, like just from the night before, which clearly is not the state you want your body in as you're towing the starting line, right? Like you want to feel light and ready to go.
But probably practice with it a couple times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing we've been talking about. It's like, okay, I got a long run on Saturday. Maybe I'm just going to I'm going to have an early, really light dinner tonight. I'm going to eat at 4 p.m. and I'm going to avoid the carbs, you know, and I'm going to eat like half a steak and some salad or whatever it is. And then, get up and do your run and practice with it. But I think I really like that feeling of being light and like ready to go versus the like, I have all the fuel that I will need, which is kind of like what the fueling the pre-carb dinner, even like Ironman does it. They have a pre-race dinner. And it's pasta. And it's like, you know, I don't know. I don't feel like light and fast after I eat a big bowl of pasta.
No, never.
It's weird. It's a weird thing.
It is weird. Yeah, I think it's just, you know, decades old mentality of carb loading so that you have carbs to burn. You know, and there's truth in there somewhere. I don't think.
Yeah, maybe like before, maybe aid stations didn't have gels.
Right. Before the gel industry
back in the day, they just had cigarettes and speed.
That sounds fun. We could do a race like that.
Yeah, we have to talk about that one day. There's a history of endurance running way long ago, like the 6-day race and stuff, where they, you know, used all kinds of techniques to stay awake and keep going. It's called pedestrianism.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madison Square Garden, early 1900s, with the World's Fair. Dude, people would bet on how long, you know, this guy could run around in a circle versus this guy.
It's like a tortoise race or something. It's like, what's happening?
It's like the mafia being like, you know, you're going to go out there and you're going to run for 10 days.
Or you're going to die. I like it.
Have some cigs.
Cool, man. Cool. We covered some good fueling. We've got a rescue strategy. We've got a what not to do. We've got lots of things in there. I feel pretty good about it. I think the biggest takeaway, which we said many, many times, is to try it out first.
Yeah, practice.
And try to mimic that race day, hard effort, depleted body in training if we can. And that all makes a lot of sense to me.
For sure.
Nice.
Sweet,
Cheers,
dude.
man.
Cheers.
Couch to 50K is an Elevated SoCal project. All rights reserved.